Welcome to Formosa Files. Okay, so we've covered some rather heavy topics recently. Crime, shipping tragedies, death, destruction. We thought it might be nice this week to have a lighter topic. So we're going to look at names, given names, especially family names. There's going to be surprises and fun along the way, but no death or destruction. So let's dive in.
The Taiwan History Podcast, Formosa Files, is made possible through the generous sponsorship of the Frank C. Chen Foundation. Formosa Files.
Names. We've all got one. I forget who said it, but what was it? A person's name is to that person the sweetest sound in any language?
In general, yes, unless you're about to get chewed out because you're in trouble with the teacher, mum or dad, or the wife because you've not cleaned up something properly. If I say, Eryk Michael Smith, is that the world's sweetest sound for you?
No, that was when my mom was angry, yeah. Anyway, let's give a quick overview of how names work here in Taiwan and point out differences with Western naming practices.
Sure. In Taiwan, names usually have 3 characters. So the first character, the first Chinese character, is the family name, which comes from the father. And the next 2 characters are the given name.
Occasionally, the given name is a single character, such as US-based director Lian, although in the West his family name gets moved to the end, so he's known as Ang Li.
Yes, and sometimes the surname is not a single character. There are 2 characters. These are typically for Mongolians and Tibetans.
And Manchus.
Yep, and the Uyghurs from the Northwest. For example, Wu Kai-shi. He was a prominent protest leader in China in 1989 at the Tiananmen Square protests. He fled China and has called Taiwan home for the last few decades.
Another difference between American and Chinese names is that Chinese names actually don't have a middle name, even though there's 3 characters.
Right. And names of parents or relatives are not recycled. So, for example, I'm named after a favorite uncle, an Uncle John. That wouldn't happen here.
It's funny that it's one of the most common names in the world, right? So, but also a beloved uncle. So I have to confess, though, I have an uncle named John Smith. So, yeah. And you're right. But, some families use what they call generation names. So you see brothers or sisters sharing one character of their given names. So
Yes.
even my 2 daughters have the same middle name or central character.
Central character, yes. And a note about married women. Unlike in the West, they keep their maiden name.
So a woman could be Tai Tai or Liu Xiaojie or something like that.
Yes, so the Tai Tai is the husband's name, family name, but yes, she still keeps her actual original maiden name.
And as I understand it, in more recent years, I think they made it legal for the kid to choose the surname of the mom if they want to.
That's right. Not many choose that, but it's available.
Okay, another question. What are the easiest and hardest surnames to write in terms of the number of strokes in the character?
Hard ones, I don't know. There are some rare ones, but among the more common names might be mine. Ross is transliterated as Law. 18, 19 strokes, I think. Yours, Smith, should be Shi, an easy one, but you didn't go that route.
Yeah, I'll tell the story, but before I do, can you write your own surname?
Slowly.
Maybe you should try the simplified version. I often use the Gentizhi for my wife's last name, Liu, because that's just too many strokes.
Ah, okay.
And as you said, so a lot of people named Smith, they use 历史的史, right? History, that character. And it's a square with a line through it, another one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Ah, okay.
But one day in 2002, I come walking out of a building and I look up at this billboard and it says, in theaters now, Eryk, which is exactly my name, Shrek.
Shrek.
So I was like, I think I got to change that. And I went ahead and just went with Eryk. So it's just my name, Eryk. I has got this little grass at the top and then the father radical, I think, at the bottom. It's also very easy to write. And my daughters are happy that they have an easy name to write as well.
Well, if you wanted a really easy one, you could have gone with King Wong.
Oh, Wong. Yeah, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
4 strokes, yeah. There's another one, though. I love this. Ding. Just 2 strokes. Looks like a capital J, but unusual.
I think if you dig through the archives, you might discover that even the character for one is a surname as well.
Okay.
That would be the easiest one, obviously.
Yes.
All right, well, moving from unusual, let's look at super usual family names in Taiwan. It's different than China. Okay, so the 10 most common surnames in Taiwan, you get no points, John. You get minus points for guessing this one.
The most popular one? Let me think. Let me delve into the
Recesses of
okay.
your mind. Yeah.
Recesses of my mind. Yes, thank you. Chen.
2.6 million of Taiwan's 23 million people had that surname. And surprisingly, only one president so far.
Yes. I actually did a calculation earlier. It's just a little over 11% of the population.
It's a lot, like a lot.
Yeah, every classroom has a couple of them. Yeah.
So imagine you're at the airport. Will a Mr. Chen please come to the service counter? Not exactly useful.
Yeah, the only thing less useful would be the Korean equivalent with a Kim.
Yes.
About double the Chen percentage. About 21% share the surname Kim.
I don't know how they work that, man. Kim, of course, is from the Chinese surname Jin.
Jin, gold, yes, which is a name here, family name here, but unusual. Yeah, but anyway, 11% for Chen, that's enough. Kind of makes your very common surname of Smith look quite special in comparison. And, the commonness of Chen is reflected in the Formosa Files episodes we've done.
When you say common surname of Smith, are you talking about my Chinese version or the English name Smith?
English name Smith, it's the most common one in England.
Yes, in every English-speaking nation. But you're right. Yeah, think about all the Formosa Files episodes we've done. Okay, we did a series on former President Chen Shui-bian, the only president named Chen, but we had a vice president named Chen. And
further back in history, Chen Di, a literati explorer, his report from his 1603 visit was the first important Chinese account on Taiwan that we know of.
then one very popular episode we did was on Taiwan's most notorious criminal, Chen Jingxing.
Speaking of criminals, we did one on another Chen serial killer, the demon of Jai.
Oh, yes, we did. And another Jai reference from you.
No worse than your Kaohsiung patriotism.
Well, to be fair, this entire podcast is made possible by another Chen, the Chen Chi-chuan Foundation. Chen Chi-chuan was the former mayor of Kaohsiung, and they support our program.
I love Kaohsiung. Kidding aside, it's one of Asia's gems.
Okay, good. You're back in my good graces. So, clearly, in the surname contest, Chen is the winner, but most people might not guess the second most common one isn't Zhang or Wang or something, it's Lin, the two trees. It's a very respectable second place, nearly 2 million people.
Third place goes to Huang, which is the same character as yellow, isn't it?
So yeah, Huang. Okay, I'll quickly run through the other top 10 family names in order of popularity. We have Zhang, Li, Wang, Wu, Liu, Cai, and Yang.
In the early days of Qing rule in Taiwan, these family names were more like clan names, with villages or areas dominated by a certain surname.
Exactly. Yeah, most Han Chinese immigrants to Taiwan came from Zhangzhou and Quanzhou in Fujian province. And these are not like super far away villages. We're not talking about the north of England and the south of England. They're relatively nearby. And they speak similar Minnan or Hokkien dialects.
Yeah.
But they were constantly at each other's throats. You're from the wrong village, on the wrong side, death to the Chens, this kind of stuff. Family names were identities and created these dividing lines. And I'm serious, they fought like crazy for centuries.
Yeah, I've read that surnames like Chen and Lin were usually from Zhangzhou, and Li was more often from Quanzhou. I'm not sure, though.
And the indigenous people of Taiwan, of course, had their own naming system, often tied to clans or geographical features. During the Qing Dynasty era, they were encouraged to adopt Chinese surnames.
And then, during the Japanese period, from 1895 to 1945, Taiwan was under Japanese rule. They didn't push Japanese names on people early on, but during the Kominka movement in the late 1930s and early 1940s, when Japan was fighting in China, Taiwanese were pressured to adopt Japanese style names to show their loyalty.
Most Taiwanese, however, didn't change names. We talked about this before, right? There were tiers,
Mhm.
like tier 1, 2, 3
Yes.
versions of righteous Taiwanese. The more Japanese you got, the higher you were raised in the level, and changing your name was part of that. But despite material benefits like better food or promotional chances, yeah, they most of them did not change their names.
And then Japanese rule ends in 1945. We have post war Taiwan. The KMT have just finished 8 years of war with the Japanese. So when they come here, they're not too keen on Japanese things.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. And maybe that can give us a little bit of compassion for some of these people who came over. They had had a rough time and they come to Taiwan and it is so Japanese. Yeah, it must have
Mm.
been quite galling for some of them. Anyway, in May of 46, the KMT authority has announced, people of Taiwan, you are citizens once again of the glorious China, this time the Republic of China. So get back to your Chinese name. No more Japanese names. And we are graciously giving you 3 months to revert to your original Chinese name, or at least find one or something.
Which I think was okay with most people.
Most, but of course not all. There were quite a few indigenous people looking for, well, they can't revert to a Chinese name, can they? They don't have one.
Right. So they're going to have to take new names and in a hurry. Getting these new names isn't some carefully studied and considered process. They were assigned new Chinese names in a random and haphazard way by household registration officials.
And of course, this is 1946. Taiwan's in chaos. It's a difficult transition. Taiwan's poor, hungry. There's disease outbreaks, shortages of everything. Anger at this situation would soon lead to the February 28th uprising the following year.
So it's a mess. Many Aborigines who should have been given the same surname, okay, they got the same surname, they're given different names. And conversely, different families, maybe they were living in the same household, they're given the same name.
A complete mess.
It weakened family and clan ties, and in a few unfortunate cases, it raised the horror of incest. So you meet someone you like, you feel a connection, but despite the different family names, this new loved one is a close relative.
Not cool, yeah. Hang Chuan's Taiwan in Time column covered this issue. He cited a tragic example featured in a 2002 documentary called What's Your Real Name by Mayao Bihu. They're two Bunun lovers with different Chinese surnames, and they discover their relatives.
Yeah, that's terrible. That article looks at the indigenous fight to get their names back.
Yeah, so that started with a small protest in 1985 in front of the Wushi Incident Memorial in Nantou, requesting the government return them their true names. And that would mean, though, that if, their name was Molaktotan, for example, you would have to turn that into either Chinese characters or write it in English.
hmm
And it was a big ask at the time for the government.
Yeah, did you notice the name, the place name there? Wushi. That's a place with some history. In 1930, indigenous warriors descended on an athletic competition at a school and killed a lot of people, and there was a lot of bloodshed that followed.
Yeah, they killed men, women, and children, sadly. And the Japanese didn't hold back with their retaliation. They went full out and just so much bloodshed.
But anyway, the 1980s movement for names continued. Indigenous people demanded the right to be able to use their own names.
And like I was just saying, so do we use English?
Well, it's a Romanized language, but yeah, Chinese characters too, I think. Don't quote me.
Let me check here. I've written down 1995 next to Aboriginal names being allowed, but using Chinese characters. And yes, since 2001, Indigenous people can use Romanized versions of their names.
Okay, but I think relatively few Aborigines took advantage of this.
Yeah, I could understand why.
No kidding. Foreigners with experience of websites, bureaucratic systems will be nodding their heads thinking, yeah, I know. I understand why the Aborigines didn't want Romanized names because they cause so many problems.
They do.
Oh,
When I go to a bank, they
yeah.
ask me to sign my name, right? A signature. So I do my
Mm-hmm.
signature and they're like, we can't read this. I'm like, yeah, it's a signature. So Then they go, oh, do it again, please. So I write, in Eryk Michael Smith. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
but on the book it says Smith Michael Eryk. So please do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. And even if it was a Chinese name, right? If there's
Mhm.
too many characters, poor kid in school has got to write Ma La Sa Lu Ka Lu Sang or something like this.
Yes.
It's Bu Fang Bian.
Yes, reading for this episode, I came across an interesting article. There's a case of a man changing his name to something very rare, characters that cannot be found in a dictionary, a standard dictionary.
Okay, I'm shuddering in horror of what you are about to tell me.
There's a man surnamed Huang. He's a technician in a government department. He changed his given name after a numerologist claimed his and his brother's names were harming their parents' health.
So he and his younger brother's names were what? I don't get this. How does this work?
Mutually antagonistic is the phrase that they conflicted. The two brothers' names conflicted, and so they changed their names. Following the name changes, their parents' health improved. Huang's new name, however, had rare characters found only in the 17th century Kangxi dictionary. And do you think modern computer systems could handle those characters?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Wild. Yeah. Not even in the. Okay.
Yeah, so
If you have a name that can't be entered into a computer, or
yeah.
you can't do anything.
Can't do anything. Yeah. So lots of problems. And one example of this was one night, Huang suddenly became ill. This was in the middle of the night, and he headed to an emergency ward at a hospital. Okay, I've given you the quote.
Okay, here. The quote from the article says, unfortunately, the nurse on duty had never seen the two strange characters before and was unable to enter his name into the computer as he rolled on the floor in pain. In the end, he had to plead with her to give him an injection for the pain, and we'll discuss the name problem later.
Yeah, you can picture it. Yeah.
It was horrific. My arm
the
is sticking out of the... Look at the broken bone. Can we worry about the name later?
Well, the story gives a good warning about the possible dangers of changing your name. And I say changing your name, officially changing it, not just giving yourself a nickname.
Yes, as I understand it, you are legally allowed to change your name 3 times in Taiwan.
That's how it is now, yes.
And I know, I'm sure you do as well, tons of people who have done so.
Absolutely, yes.
Way more common than, at least in America.
Much more.
This one bit from a Taiwan Panorama article from 2005, it starts with this statement: changing one's name is all the rage in Taiwan. Techniques for choosing a new name include ones based on the I Ching, the Chinese zodiac, and luck enhancement methods.
The article says name changing was a popular trend of recent years, and this was related to the Ministry of the Interior easing restrictions on name changes in 2003. So this article, 2005, says there was a wave of books and websites offering people help in choosing new names.
So the following years after the 03 law changes, it becomes even more common than before.
Like you said, a lot of people have changed their names. Guess the reason.
If I was
a lot of criminals and
yeah. Criminals. No, it's really like 90% fortune or luck. I mean, in my wife's family, there's so many, and it's just because some fortune teller said, "Oh, this is not right for this part of your life. This needs to be," and they could do it.
Yeah, so they've experienced some setbacks, could be money, health, love, and they're looking for a change of luck. And what can bring a change of luck? Change your name. And sometimes people have changed their name more than once.
Sure.
But like you said, there's a limit, so you better think carefully for your last choice. Make sure it's the one you want to be stuck with. So before you could change it twice, then 2015, I think 3 changes were allowed.
Yeah, correct, yeah. And a few people discovered this restriction, that it was 3, the hard way a few years back.
Yes, 2021, Taiwan experienced a quirky phenomenon. What could we call it? What would we call it? Is it the salmon chaos?
Sure, but I prefer incident because that's the traditional.
Okay.
The Salmon Name Incident.
Yeah.
There was a media buzz about this because a few hundred individuals legally changed their names to include the Chinese characters for salmon, guiyu.
Why would someone legally change their name to salmon? And the answer is rather disappointing.
Yes, it's not like there's a a salmon in the zodiac animal, or it's a symbol of great luck or something. These name changers wanted to take advantage. They wanted to capitalize on a promotion by a restaurant chain, a sushi chain. If they changed their name to salmon, actually to salmon, they would get cheaper or free food.
Well, obviously, you didn't explore the promotion carefully enough. It was you get a discount if your name's a homophone. Okay, so same sound, but different characters. But people who had the exact characters for salmon, what did they get?
Oh, right. If you had an official ID that proved it, exact characters,
Mm-hmm.
then you ate for free with up to 5 other people.
Yeah, but who's going to have that name?
Well, quite a few people
Okay, so yeah,
went
quite a
for
few
it.
people.
Yeah.
All right.
If it was
So,
you and I, John, we would just like 剪刀石头布, and then whoever loses has to go.
Okay. Yeah. So this promotion led to a surge in name changes with people adopting names like Salmon Prince and Meteor Salmon King. Oh, terrible.
You're there at your job interview a few years down the road,
Yeah.
Mr. Chen Salmon. But in general, Taiwanese officials were not amused. They criticized it for being a waste of government time and just being shallow, no pun intended with the fish. There were debates in the Taiwanese parliament even about, should we put amendments to these name change laws? Some lawmakers were saying we need stricter regulations to prevent this kind of silliness. Most of the participants who went with this salmon thing, they reverted to their original name, but some of them found themselves swimming upstream because their
Oh,
new name was already the third, and that's it.
I
You're
have
done.
no sympathy for them, no sympathy at all. What shallowness, stupidity, lack of consideration for the restaurants trying to, make a living. So greedy.
So you're concerned about the capitalist angles to this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily a good look for Taiwan.
Indeed, a very bad look for Taiwan, but I think there was one detail missed out which actually makes Taiwan look really good.
Okay.
It's not widely reported, but this promotion for free or discounted sushi, the promotion was put on the Facebook page on a Monday, and it's only good for the upcoming Thursday and Friday.
So 3 days to change an official name and get a new printed ID card with a new name.
Exactly. 3 days at most. So the fact that so many could do this, is that not an incredible example of Taiwan government department efficiency?
That's a very positive spin on this insanity. But no matter how easy it is to change your name, Formosa Files would like to offer a public service announcement, not encouraging people to do that. Think of all the difficulties you would have later: banking, taxes, car, scooter licenses. You got to change all those things. So maybe not.
Not very filial either, is it? It's not respectful to one's ancestors.
So we were looking for reasons for changing one's name. We mentioned luck and free sushi. Thankfully, that's just a one-off weird news story. But another reason is people not liking their name. They might think it is strange or low class. So let's look at some of those examples.
Okay, of low class names, how about 菜头, vegetable head, or 水牛, buffalo, water buffalo? But these are examples from like the early KMT days. Farmers, I think, choosing carelessly.
I would like buffalo, but not vegetable head. And then superstitious reasons, maybe an ordinary, unglamorous name, a modest name, and that would mean the child is less likely to have evil spirits attack it with a disease or accidents or something. This, in many cultures, where they call their kid dumbhead or something so the spirits don't attack them.
Mm-hmm. And back in the old days, when baby girls were often seen as a disappointment, this was reflected in their name, like Jiao Di.
Zhao means to beckon or invite, and Di means younger brother. Wow.
Yeah, so together you get invite a younger brother, indicating the parents would like a male child in the future.
Oh, I'm sure that did nothing for their psychological self-esteem. Man. Or a girl might get just a really lazy name, something like Ermei, second daughter. Sometimes used as an informal household name, but then sometimes actually a legal name. Not much thought put into a name like that, was there?
No, but thankfully girls are much cherished today and their names reflect that.
One area in which Chinese names continue to cause problems is at school, and that's connected to history class.
Yeah, so Chinese names can be a headache when it comes to history. I think it's one of the reasons history as a school subject here is less popular than for students elsewhere. Taiwanese students usually describe history as hard and boring, and the hard part often comes from the complexity of the dating systems, this
Hmm.
year of that emperor's reign, the ROC year, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. But talking about emperors, you get then the multiple name problem.
Right. Not just emperors. Let's take Chiang Kai shek, for example.
Okay, okay. Chiang Kai shek, CKS for short, president, as you've pointed out, John, president of the ROC from 1928 till his death in
Elected again and again.
legally elected repeatedly
Yes.
until his death in 1975.
The Wikipedia page for him has an excellent section just on his many names. This section is nearly 900 words in total, but we won't go into that much detail here.
No, no, no. But let's try to make it a bit more comprehensible. Every city in Taiwan, and many a town, if not all, has
Hmm.
a Zhongzhen Road. It's named after CKS.
Yes, and the name Zhongzheng carries the meaning of uprightness, correctness.
Zhong, central, Zheng, correctness.
Hmm.
For such a positive name, you'd think, well, somebody bestowed it upon him. But no, it was chosen by Zhang when he was about 30 years old.
Right. Not unusual at the time to choose a so called courtesy name for yourself. But it is odd, isn't it? You could call yourself modest greatness or something.
Listeners, you are welcome to suggest courtesy names for John and I in the comments. That would be nice. So that means his full name became Zhang Zhongzhen, but the surname is usually dropped.
Right. So the Chiang Kai shek Memorial Hall in Taipei is in Chinese the Zhongzheng Memorial Hall.
And it seems the name he chose for himself later was an attempt to have an association with the founder of the KMT, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who went by the name Zhongshan, literally Central Mountain.
And every city here has a main street called Zhongshan Road.
Oh, yes, it does. The most important street, usually. If CKS had this courtesy name, it would be easy enough, but it actually gets more complicated or interesting.
So when he was born, he was registered as Jiang Zhou Tai, a so-called register name used for formal occasions, but not by people outside his circle of relatives.
And unlike in the West, where you get a name at birth and you keep it, in Chinese tradition, the family waited a number of years before officially naming their children. In the meantime, they used what they called a milk name. And Chiang Kai-shek had one of these as well, Zhang Rui Yuan.
When the 16-year-old Jiang went away from home to a high school as a student, he chose a school name.
A school name, Xueming. And the one he chose for himself, Zixing, which means purity of aspirations. And it's not just what he used in school, it's what people knew him by. I mean, people were, hey, purity of aspirations, we're going down to the pub.
Right. Yeah, he used it for the next 15 years or so. So when he joined Sun Yat-sen and the others in the early nationalist movement, that's what they called him.
So when are we going to get to the name Chiang Kai-shek? We're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, it's not easy. Okay. He didn't switch to it right away. He first used it as a pen name. This was in 1912 when he was in Japan studying. He started to use the name Chiang Kai-shek as a pen name for articles that he wrote.
But his name had two pronunciations. If you read the characters in Mandarin Chinese, it's Zhang Jiesi.
Right, so 介石, very different from Kai-shek, but the same name, the same characters. Kai-shek comes from the Cantonese. CKS, Chiang Kai-shek, was not a Cantonese speaker, but the KMT were based in Canton, in modern-day Guangzhou.
Over time, Kai-shek or Jiesi soon became the name he was known for.
Right, and it means something like as firm as stone.
And that name worked out okay for him. He was rather firm in his rockiness, stubborn, and a survivor like stone.
Yeah, he did well, other than losing China to the communists. But yes, that's a story for our upcoming summer series on Chiang Kai-shek.
Looking forward to that.
So, Eryk, for foreigners out there considering getting a Chinese name, any advice?
Okay, actually, yeah, I do have some. Don't try to be too clever, too funny, or too original. You might end up with something rather weird or childish or having awkward connotations. Ask some Taiwanese friends, maybe, get some honest feedback. And if it's a surname, think about the fact that you might have kids and they're going to have to write that. So Long, as in dragon, yeah, it is a surname, but I don't really think your kids are going to be happy about having to write that 50 times a day.
Agreed. Yes. And there are some established Chinese equivalent names based on phonetics for sounds. So,
Right. For Smith.
Shrek for your Smith.
and
and
Law for Ross. Yeah. Law Dong the Law.
Right. Yeah. I didn't need to choose a given name for my John because, Jesus.
You mean that literally, yes. John's a biblical name, so it has a standard, well-known translation, Yuan.
A godly name, and I wouldn't change it for some free salmon sushi. But I might be tempted if a beer company were running a promotion and looking to hand out sponsorship.
Fair enough. Okay. But I'm not going back to Shrek anytime soon. All right. Thanks for listening. 谢谢. I'm Eryk Michael Smith.
I'm John Ross. Bye.